Yeah.
We're live. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming to the City Council budget meeting for March 22nd to 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. here in Beaumont City Council chambers. I'll call meeting to order and I'll begin with our land acknowledgement. We are pleased to be here today on traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. As we gather here today in the traditional territory of Treaty 6, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibility to protect and honor all of life. Continuing with our agenda this evening, number 2 is adoption of the agenda. Ms. Winter, any changes to the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Administration has one amendment to the agenda. Item 4A, attachment 2, updates page number 9 in the Beaumont proposed 2023 budget document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member of Council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented. Any takers? Councilor McCook.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the March 22-23-2022 budget council meeting agenda be adopted with the following amendment. Item 4A, attachment 2, updates page number 9 in the Beaumont proposed 2023 budget document.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? Cat? No problem. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. With that, our next on our agenda is consent agenda. The consent agenda is has one item on it, pay-as-you-go funding. The member of Council willing to move the adoption of the consent agenda as presented, or does anybody wish to take the consent agenda off? Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I'd actually like to remove it.
Thank you. Ms. Winter, with removing it, do we need to make a motion to remove it, or we simply just, we're good to taking it off? Thank you, Councillor Miller. Consent agenda will not proceed, and we will go with our first item of business will be a report on pay-as-you-go funding. I believe Mr. DeBlanco, would you be presenting on pay-as-you-go funding? I'm assuming it's yourself. When you're ready, Curtis, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Before council this evening is the report on pay-as-you-go funding as a response to the motion from January 10th. The report was presented as part of the agenda package. If council has any questions on the report, administration would be glad to take them.
Any questions on pay-as-you-go or? Councillor Miller, would you prepare a question?
I don't have any questions prepared. I was just kind of hoping you could walk through it so that it saves us time later if there's any questions on that process, but.
Mr. Blanco, could you help us out with that?
Sure, I can walk through the report really quick here.
Maybe just for my sake personally, maybe just walk us through what the concept of pay-as-you-go is and how it works, kind of give us a Reader's Digest version of it.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
So pay-as-you-go overall is a component of 2 of the city's budgets, both the municipal operating and the capital budget. So for municipal operating, it is a program of funding. So funds are being allocated out of the city's operating budget and into the city's capital budget. So from a municipal budget perspective, it forms a program just like any other program, whether it's fire services or roads, snow clearing, recreation, etc. It's a program specifically going towards the city's capital envelope. And how it shows up in the city's budget is as an inter-budget transfer. So that's kind of the first page of the report. We have multiple inter-budget or inter-fund transfers, things like reserve transfers, come from both the municipal operating and utility operating budget. Draws from those reserves are for either capital projects or operating projects. There's other costing transfers for things like project management and reflecting the fact that the utilities budget has a draw on the city's municipal budget. And then the last one, obviously the purpose of the report is pay as you go, and that's a transfer directly from the tax levy funded budget to the city's capital. So that's the tax levy funded side. So obviously any increase or decrease to that program has an impact on the city's tax budget. as a funding source of the capital budget. A way I like to think of it is a grant from the city to the city. So much like the city receives a grant from the province or a grant from the federal government in the form of the Canada Community Building Fund or MSI, the city then funds almost its own grant program in the form of pay-as-you-go. There's a lot of advantages to it. One, sustainability. The other one is flexibility and efficiency. We can see on the second page, there's some pie charts. Basically what that's indicating is the city's pay-as-you-go budget is below what would be considered ideal. One of the reasons, and we talk about sustainability, is that having a larger piece of the pie, so to speak, for the city's growth funding pool come from itself allows the city to have more autonomy over how much is going into that and less reliance on other governments. As a grant program, I'm just going to continue to call it a grant program itself. It's very easy to deal with. There's no program guidelines, parameters like other grant programs have. It's merely council dictates that this is the amount of funding that this program will receive. This is the amount of money that goes into the funding pool that can be drawn for projects. Typically, the city funds smaller projects with it, equipment, machinery, things that taking the time to submit a grant application for would be inefficient to do so. So it's just an easy way for the city to provide funding for these smaller projects. There's multiple ways to increase the amount. We talk in the report about the delta between what an ideal amount would be and what the current amount would be. So mechanisms to increase it would be to attribute an amount of growth towards it over time, reallocate any debt service payments that drop off. So that keeps the city's capital envelope intact and we're not reducing the amount of money that's going from the operating budget to capital, or some investment income strategies when, depending on interest rates and investment income up and down, there's an opportunity to leverage some of that and put it towards capital funding. There is a graph on the third page of the report, which kind of shows a strategy to go from the current state of funding to what would be a more ideal and more sustainable level of funding for the city's pay-as-you-go funding. And a number of mechanisms could be used to fund that we just talked about, whether it's from growth revenue or from debt service payments dropping off. But from what we see on that chart is that between 0.4 and 0.6 of a tax increase or of the tax levy would be required to reach that ideal funding state.
Thanks, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that. Any questions from council on the report? Councillor Barnhart, Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one, Mr. DeBlanco. So the 0.8 million that is in there now and proposed to be in there in the budget, is that other than at budget time, does council have a policy that directs you to do that? Or is it coming from the administration on an annual basis as to how much should go into that?
Thanks for the question through to Councillor Barnhart. So there's no policy in place for the amount of funding in there. It's merely, this is the amount we, just like any other programs within the city's budget, administration reviews whether they are overfunded, underfunded, or funded to the appropriate level. In this case, it's at 0.8, which is the level that we determined would be a best move for the city for 2023, given the constraints the city's under.
But I guess the point is it's in council's purview every year if we wanted
At
to
budget time, yes.
reduce that amount or increase that amount.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCobb-Swain, Sam, you have a question?
Yeah, so super helpful explanation. The way that I see it is there's 800K that we're using in this operations budget to fund our capital budget. Instead of, the capital time, we were having some challenges looking at project by project. Would it be fair to say, if we wanted to, which I don't think we should, but if we wanted to, better for us to reduce the 800,000 as part of this operating budget, and then you guys figure out what you can spend with that, as opposed to going project by project and saying this one out, this one not. So directionally, we should say, actually, if we want to save $300,000, for example, one of the options could be to drop the pay-as-you-go contribution from 800K to 500K. Would that be the right way to handle that? Is that the right way to do it from your perspective?
It would depend on the intent of council, but for that specific, like if we're talking about project by project, what I would, from a capital perspective, what I would recommend for council is just rather than focusing on what the funding source is, focus on the grant funding pool, whether it's MSI, CCBC, CCBF, or pay as you go. How a project gets funded will come out of that pool as best determined once we have the final amount. But once again, if we're asking about the question for the city's operating budget, we have an approved capital budget already, which does have amounts funded from that funding source, so that those would then need to be reallocated if
and that was
decision was made as you suggested.
that was the point I was hoping to make, is that we've committed on the capital side of things. You know, our job is to go through here and see where we can find things up or down, right? And you know, it's been brought up a few times that maybe we could potentially reduce the pay as you go. What you're saying in here that you know, from a ideal perspective, it should be around 2 million. We're not there yet, given the impact. So it's about 800,000. So yeah, I think that's clear to me. And right now that 800,000 is in this operating budget for us, and we unless someone makes a motion to change it, then that would have an impact on the capital budget. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on the pay-as-you-go report? Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, for us to increase, that would have to come directly from council to increase it as proposed here in the strategy.
Thanks for the question through to Councillor McCook. So if council feels that they, an addition to pay as you go to that program is warranted, yes, that would come from council motion and then would have an impact on the city's municipal operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, we will stay at the amount and we won't have it increased as per the projection.
Just making sure we're saying the same thing. The proposed budget has approximately 800,000 proposed as funded.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for us to increase it
Further. Yeah.
to the 2 million, we need to put motions forward to do that.
That's
It won't
right.
we are not automatically increasing incrementally.
No,
Correct?
that would come as part of each. If we're discussing the plan that's in here over 7-8 years, those would come as part of each of those individual years' operating budgets.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on the pay-as-you-go report? Seeing none. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, proposed budget overview. So administration will present the proposed budget to us as they had done back in November. We're going to just do another presentation this evening, and then we'll move into the presentation from administration on the Service Transformation Initiative, at which point we'll do some chatting about that, and we'll go forward from that point forward. So budget first, then we'll go into service transformation. No. Oh, hang on a second. Oh. Ms. Winter, question, do we need to accept the pay-as-you-go report as information by motion? There we go. Okay. I was still on consent. Sorry, I thought it was already on consent. So having said that, Councillor Barnard, guess what you get to do?
Yes, I'll make that motion that the March 22nd, 2023 report pay-as-you-go funding be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any discussion on the motion? See none. Council, would you please vote on the motion before you? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, then moving on to 4A, proposed budget overview for 2023 operating budget. Mr. Blanco, are you presenting again, or Mr. Dowler? Mr. Blanco? Curtis, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Once again, we're here this evening for the city's municipal operating budget for tax funded operations. Original budget was proposed in November, and since then council has an opportunity to ask questions and receive administration's answers. So the presentation tonight is going to be very brief. With the budget in front, administration believes that it allows council to work towards their priorities as identified in the new strategic plan. Following these deliberations, administration will update the budget for any changes and return in April to seek approval of the budget. Approval of the budget must occur prior to approval of the property tax bylaw, which establishes the residential and non-residential tax rates for the year. Once both the budget and the tax rate bylaw have been approved, property tax notices can be distributed to property owners, and this must occur by the end of May. Property taxes will then be due by the end of June. Since the budget meetings held in November and December of 2022, administration has updated the following forecast and has reflected these changes, and those are shown as in attachment 2. First, the provincial government announced that MSI operating allocations to municipalities will be doubled. For the city of Beaumont, this amounts to $139,000 in additional revenue. Additionally, costs relating to regional transit of approximately $285,000 have been removed from the proposed budget. And finally, to reflect the recent council motion to reduce transit service, a further reduction of $98,000 has been reflected. Altogether, a total reduction of those 3 items represents $523,000 impact to the tax levy through both increased revenue and decreased forecasted expenses. Once again, this has been reflected in the updated attachment 2, or page 9 as it's been called. This brings the proposed property tax levy down to an increase of 5.1%. And at an increase of 5.1%, a typical homeowner would see an annual increase on the municipal portion of their property taxes in the amount of $161 a year, or approximately $13 a month. With that, I'll turn it back over to council for discussion. Thank you.
And Mr. Blanco, appreciate that. Any questions from council initially on what Mr. Blanco just ran through a moment ago? We do have the revised, as mentioned, attachment 2 is page 9 in the budget document. It's been revised since the November budget, as Mr. Blanco mentioned a moment ago, from 7.4 down to 5.18. So that's our starting point for the operating budget for the next 2 evenings of workshop here. So with that, seeing no questions from council, we'll move right into, if we could, please, administration, we had talked about a presentation from administration on the service transformation initiatives, which is a significant portion of the proposed budget increase. And looking forward to this presentation, and council have the opportunity to ask questions of this particular initiative report after the presentation is done. So Ms. Hudo, will you be presenting?
I'm just waiting for the presentation.
No problem, thanks. Could you pull your mic just a shade closer if you wouldn't
Yep.
mind? They're very directional and sometimes they don't quite cooperate. Thank you.
I'm just going to check and see how this works. There we go. Good evening, council and members of the public. My name is Jennifer Bosso-Hudak, and I'm the Director of Corporate Analytics and Technology. We are here this evening to further clarify the service transformation initiatives on page 24 of the proposed 2023 budget. This initiative will enable the city to streamline citizen interactions in order to strengthen and standardize customer service delivery. It will also simplify processes for employees, including improve operational efficiency throughout the organization. This proposed budget request involves the development of a service experience office, moving away from our current decentralized model to a centralized customer service center with integrated digital experience platforms, priority given to develop a new website, new service portals, integrated apps, online forms, and enhanced online payment processing within the request. Not working. No. There we go. Why do we need this initiative? We have identified 4 main categories to address this question. First, this initiative supports the council strategic plan, in particular 2 aspirations: to future-proof growth for safe, inclusive, and vibrant community, and empower citizens who connect and collaborate with civic government. This initiative specifically speaks to and achieves the goal set out by council related to the city's technology, infrastructure, and systems, support enhanced transparency, and enable more effective interactions with citizens. The second category is to address customer service delivery gaps that have been identified in various public engagements over the years and that have been communicated through daily interactions by our citizens to council and to administration as current frustration points yet to be resolved, such as citizens' inability to access relevant information and in a timely manner, inconsistent front desk interactions such as hours of operation. Only certain transactions can be done at certain facilities. For example, citizens are unable to pay taxes or utilities at our rec centers. There is a lack of online platforms for citizens and businesses who prefer online anytime interactions. By addressing these service gaps, we also support another council goal as citizens can provide insight and collaborate in Beaumont's direction through a range of novel and meaningful ways. And we'll explain that in a bit. The third category, sustainability. To optimize administration's internal processes to support positive citizen experiences. Admin would consolidate duplicate customer service tasks being utilized in various departments, thus maximizing value and reallocating existing resources found to deliver other services. Administration would be able to integrate new business solutions, which could offer to display real-time reporting and quality assurance matrix related to the city's customer and digital experiences. As an example, providing citizens with expected wait time for callbacks. Administration has identified opportunities to optimize our resources, doing more for less. Assigning FTEs to a department is one type of resource to address effective use of taxpayers' funds. Optimizing processes, implementing the correct technology, and continuing to improve, thus reducing red tape, are all critical components in sustainability related to capacity within administration's available resources. Finally, and the most important, to enhance our citizen experience in both digital and in-person customer interactions. By minimizing citizen effort to interact or conduct business with the city, and by addressing our customer service operational support framework in a holistic and resilient manner to ensure positive citizen interactions as we continue to onboard new programs and/or facilities. In other words, how and when citizens want to access information, and how and when citizens want to conduct business with the city in a positive, respectful manner. The next two questions we're going to combine. What will this provide to admin and the residents? And what are the benefits doing this? We're going to provide some insight by going through our current state to give you some ideas of what we're dealing with today. We just wanted to highlight one of the key findings from last year. We conducted an internal study to determine the number of employees interacting via telephone with citizens. The results were not surprising, but we were able to quantify that 70 roles, that's job titles, interact with citizens over the phone, which when we extrapolate, it equates to 10 full-time customer relations employees on a daily basis. This data is to emphasize the magnitude of one of Beaumont's current channels of interaction, which would be part of this transformation. This slide represents our current operating model. Administration and citizens currently interact in a decentralized framework, which means each department is responsible for their own customer service delivery, resulting in inconsistency of processes, methods, and service levels, which a citizen does encounter. This graphic illustrates just the partial number of services and touch points shown in the blue bubbles, which a citizen has to connect when asking questions of the city or completing a business transaction. In other words, citizens are given different phone numbers, different emails, different online forms to connect with us. This equates to a high citizen effort, which contributes to an overall poor citizen experience. We define citizen effort as the ease of doing business or interacting with the city. With our current state, we are asking the citizen to burden the bulk of the work, thus a poor experience. By implementing a centralized service experience office, the citizen will be provided with a single point of contact to assist with their needs. We reduce the number of touch points for the citizen to conduct business, resulting in minimizing citizen effort, thus improving the experience. It does not matter if a citizen wants to book a water meter install, order an extra waste cart, or find out the hours of a building. The citizen will be provided with a single point of contact, a unified service portal, and multifunctional front desk counters to interact with the city. This initiative would also address the service delivery gaps as noted in previous findings and as summarized in these 4 themes. First theme, citizens' ability to follow up and deliver. A common complaint noted by residents is the lack of follow-up to requests or inquiries by staff. Another citizen complaint is inconsistency of information received. A resident contacts the city 1 month, receives one answer, and the next gets a different. Secondly, we want to minimize citizen effort. As noted earlier, citizen effort is the ease of doing business and interacting. Many feel the city's processes are too complicated and are designed for the convenience of the departments and not the citizen. Third, enhance our customer service culture and delivery. Citizens have noted the inconsistency between the level of knowledge and service provided by staff across the organization. For example, a highly detailed explanation to a problem versus a one-sentence response. Yes, it's challenging to find that balance, as not all issues require detailed explanation, but is still considered a gap. Finally, our digital platforms. This theme encompasses all the findings from the digital master plan presented to council in Q4 of 2022, such as our citizens' frustration with current website and service portals. We only have 22% online processes from start to finish for our digitally inclined citizens to access. At this point, I would refer you to a presentation that was recently done by Mike Berezowski and his team and provided to council last month of any other digital gaps identified from the website audit. I'm not going to cover them here, but pretty recent. Finally, administration is unable to provide real-time KPIs to support benchmarks or even provide path for improvement. Key contributing factor is the lack of centralized or integrated systems, such as a customer relations management system. To address these customer service gaps, this initiative would provide administration an opportunity to improve citizen-facing processes by embedding the citizen perspective in our business process reviews. The requested funds for this initiative would enable administration to diarize and fully detail our customer service inventory, who the service owners are, define impacted stakeholders, and required outcomes. We would develop process maps for online and in-person services, then apply journey maps to ensure the final product has the citizen perspective embedded in each touch point, a citizen-first approach. Next, we would prioritize service delivery for digitization. For example, replacing the submission of a PDF to an online web form, simplifying service tickets, accepting digital signatures. It's endless. To improve online interactions for citizens would then be integrated with internal automation to increase efficiency, such as, for example, speed of response. A quick example we can think of is if two departments require to review and approve a road use application, the application form would be completed by the applicant. The online form would be programmed to be sent simultaneously to both departments, instead of our current manual process where one staff completes the review, approves it, forwards it on to the next, etc. Another opportunity for administration, which would benefit our residents, is to integrate reporting and KPIs in the new business systems, thus providing citizens with clear service expectations. Once we have optimized the workflows, we can then develop the process and operational matrices to potentially display to various stakeholders, such as contact volume by channel, average handle time by a customer service rep. It'd be nice to be able to say our handle time is defined, obviously, when a citizen calls us from start to finish. It covers hold time, talk time, any other related tasks. Administration also has the opportunity to develop and communicate to citizens our KPIs. First point of contact, how many times do we resolve it when the customer calls one time? Average speed of response, it's endless. The next slide here, if you recall, and when we were doing the budget presentation, I think it was Councillor Mockhoff-Swain's question when we presented this. Is this an all-in-one solution? And I did respond, yes, it's a one and done. There is significant amount of analysis which is required to be completed, as we have been operating in a decentralized model for years related to customer service. In the past, administration recommended just website upgraded projects, but did not include the analytics, process reviews, or supporting operating structures for sustaining a positive citizen experience as part of those requests. Thus, the current frustration when you click on our website today. That's why this service transformation initiative has been packaged to solve the service gaps, rebuild the digital platforms, streamline the administration processes, and introduce a centralized customer service center, maximizing our resource allocation in the most effective plan. Simply, it's not just about building a website or having a phone being answered. It is about putting all the right support structures in place to maintain the customer service level our citizens require to interact with the city. The slide here, the service transformation order of implementation, can be summarized as having the right people in place, activating our citizen focus groups to ensure the processes are being developed with the citizen first approach in an optimized state, which will lead us to the technology solution, which integrates business systems, ensuring administration can sustain the level of customer service required to build confidence, transparency, and consistency our residents expect as we have real-time matrices to our customer service delivery in Beaumont. The other question that was asked, and we're almost done, but what are the consequences of doing this? Basically, the citizens will continue to have multiple touch points. They're going to have to phone multiple different numbers, etc. We have missed opportunities for the city to improve on our citizen-facing processes. Building a website without completing the business process and optimization or application system integration just results in a pretty looking website. We need to do both. Couple more, we have business solutions which currently lack integration, thus challenging to provide real-time information to communicate service level expectations to our citizens. We're not able to do, it's challenging when you have manual processes to figure out those times. We have service gaps that are not going to be effectively addressed. And with our current state remains, the service level our customer service are going to experience as our population grows, it will not be sustained and we'll have still that friction. So the last question was, what are the savings by doing this? I'm going to rephrase this. Reframe it that the question is, what is the potential capacity that we gain by following the order of implementation for this transformational initiative? I'm going to walk you through a current example that we're deploying right now with this within our internal operations. And basically what it is we mapped out the process. So when we went through it all, we had 31 touch points. So if you can imagine, we are dealing with a document 31 times. We optimized that down to 8 points, touch points. We then included an automation component in there. We centralized the solution. As we go through this, now we can start gathering data. The number of events per month we had to calculate. The assumption built in as far as how long it takes, we actually had to stopwatch timing things. We then calculate the amount of time we saved on this one organizational process that we've put in. What you see here, and the numbers may be a little small, a little detail, but I wanted to make sure you understood how we go through this. We basically, 12 months, took data, what we did from last year. We had in January, 523 documents we processed in our current state. So our manual process, one that would be like our customer service, we had 57 hours. We then put a solution in by going through everything. We increased our processing time. That would reflect as well. We increased our accuracy because we're not touching this frequently. We increased our transparency. And now we have a centralized platform that all internal staff can access that understand what's going on. What does that equate to when you go through a full year? This is how we optimize. Our current process was 772 hours. We optimized it down to 368 hours. Capacity gained. This is the part that's important. The 402 hours we just gained by implementing something that was organizationally wide. By doing this, we gained 11.5 weeks or equates down to a 0.2 FTE. Administration can then reallocate that time we gained by going through this service transformation by prioritizing tasks related to service delivery across other departments. I'm going to leave one final comment, and I think I'm done. This initiative is an organizational wide and a citywide one. Savings as discussed as capacity gained would be transferred to other service areas while ensuring our citizens are at the forefront and can access the correct information at the right time in the way they want to, either in person or online. And that we can implement those interactions with minimal citizen effort. Beaumont's future service experience for our community would be enhanced if this initiative is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bozo Hudak. Appreciate that presentation. Very thorough, very informative, and you answered our questions as outlined very well. Thank you very much. With that, open up to council for questions. Councilor Miller, you have the con first, and then have Councilor Monkoff Swain, followed by Councilor Van Newkirk. Ashley?
Great. All right. Thank you. Wow, that was a wonderful presentation. Sounds like you practiced that many times, maybe. I thought that was excellent. And just all of the data, how we can increase that experience for residents is so important. And it's definitely something that you hear and you read about online all the time. And so you answered my first question, which was the full package. And I'm assuming when you say that, you mean, I think it's 5 or 6 FDs that you have, and without one of those, it kind of crumbles. So thank you for reiterating that. For me, where I'm at right now, and I'll hear from the rest of council to kind of talk about this, but for me, it's just that everything has a price, right? And that's kind of why we are where we are. We deferred because we were kind of waiting on that extra, announcement for capital. And in that case, it may have been a different conversation. And so I just wanted, you to know and the public that I fully support increasing that experience for residents, because I know it's very, very frustrating. However, I'm not sure how I would feel having that conversation, with a resident saying, you're getting a better experience, but you're also paying this price, and I can't tell you, what we have coming in. Everything it's kind of like the pendulum, right? I don't know. So that's where I'm at right now, but I'd really like to hear what everyone else's thoughts are. And that was just a very thorough, excellent presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Monkoff Swain.
Yeah, I'll just keep it to a very simple question. Yeah, I'll chime in with just a simple question. Right at the beginning of the presentation, you spoke about connection between, let me just grab my notes here, the new financial system implementation and the service transformation initiative. Now, I completely understand that they would be connected, but just a question for Mr. DeBlanco or Ms. Bozo Hudak, whoever chimes in. Does and can the new financial system initiative stand alone in absence of the service transformation initiative, or are they interlocked for the purposes of this ask?
They can stand alone. What happens with the financial system, it's a longer deployment plan. So the impact will happen if we don't have a proper website platform where the online processing or other forms won't connect later.
So they complement, but they are not dependent upon.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Monkoff Swain, followed by Councilor Tessier. Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you. And yeah, we asked you to sell it. You did it. I don't know if the votes will be there, but you did your job for sure. So help me understand a couple of things. So I know we look at this and, the number says 685, but I look at it and see it as 1.1 million. So for first question, the $430,000 of transfers, could someone just speak to what that is covering and why we're looking at that for 2023? And not further on. So what's that one-time piece that's coming in for the 430,000?
The one-time piece is the technology that would be implemented. So hardware, phone systems, and other one-time costs to set the office up.
And that's coming from our reserves to help and going with our policy, which you've explained to us multiple times. I won't get you to do it again this time. that's how we can bring that in from reserves.
Yeah.
But effectively, this is a $1.1 million ask in this budget. So I just want to stress that. The second question I have is, on the sheet, like I look at this not just as 2023, right? But what is the impact down the road? So you've got 5 FTEs in 2023, and then I see another 5 in 24, 25, 26. Are we talking about?
Consistent.
Yeah. So are you talking about adding 5 FTEs for the next 5? But it just looks misleading on here. So could you explain the impact of 2023 versus 2024 versus 2025?
Right now, with the forecast that we have, and until we actually go through the whole process, it's 5 FTEs while the setup and to maintain. Okay. As the city grows, that might adjust, but those 5 FTEs are consistent.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring it up, and we're probably all got different versions of the budget, but on the one pager that's in front of it, it talks about expenses in 2024 of 682,000, expenses in 25. So
That's the 5 FTEs, the ongoing.
correct. So that's the ongoing piece. So we're not looking at increasing and another, call it 2 and a bit % every year. That's just a one-time thing, and then obviously we'll need to pay them throughout.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. That's a good explanation. And yeah, I'll save my comments. I know we're going to do kind of a straw poll. I'll save my comments on whether I'm up or down on this till after questions. But yeah, I appreciate the explanation, and we'll see where we end up.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Renee.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, thanks for the great presentation for sure. Sold it very well. Just to touch on Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point. So the financial system, just a scenario. If this doesn't go and that doesn't go, is that as effective though? Or is it, is it money not spent well if the financial system goes or vice versa? Because I heard it still works, but
The financial system is on a legacy. It's not being supported well with the vendor, and it's a system that needs to be replaced. That means the patching, it's not up to date on the current cybersecurity components. It's not being managed. It's being one of those systems that are by the vendor being decommissioned. So we have to be very careful how long we run that system for. And I'm saying we need to change it from from a tech perspective, but I know from a financial perspective, there are much better systems out there that would give us better reporting, give us a lot more flexibility in how we conduct business with our citizens.
Okay, understood. And we can talk more about that one when it comes up. For me, just to go to last year's budget, I know we approved $170,000 in operating for a new website, right? And we
$170,000 for a digital master plan. That was for the completing the digital master plan and completing the website content audit.
Okay, yeah, and I think there's a major miscommunication during budget last year when that happened, because from my perspective, and I believe from others, we thought it was a website redesign, right? So the 170, I was like, sounds like a lot, but it's needed, it makes sense. That's how I perceived it. And understanding the breakdown that it didn't happen, it was for the audit, I see now, and then some went into the digital master plan. What does that mean when over $100,000 just goes into a plan?
The plan right now sets out the roadmap. It's just like a master plan for any of the social master plan, all those plans. It actually gives us the guiding principles on how we're going to develop our digital experience within the city.
Well, I understand the plan. I'm saying 125 grand was allocated to the plan. Was it was to make the plan then, or
Yes.
to actually
Yeah.
utilize pieces in the plan?
It was to create the plan.
All right. Okay. So that again was a miscommunication, I believe. Okay. So Councillor Munkoff-Swain talked about the FTEs. So that was good that you covered that. Can Mr. Dowler, can you answer what's the tax levy percentage on $680,000 per year? Is it about 3%? Is a quick.
Yeah, Councillor, I think it's roughly about 3%, just under 3, 2.9 would be what we would kind of factor there for the 685 or whatever the number is in the budget for this one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and you know, to talk about what's on the table, we hear it all the time. It's something that needs to be addressed. The 685 is just, it's hard for me to swallow right now, and it's a lot of money. It's, you know, is there a need at the moment? Not for me, potentially at the time. I'm not saying it's a no for next year or the year after, but not being able to split it up into smaller chunks is tough. I would have liked to see, you know, if get the website going, maybe 2 FTEs at 300,000, and the year after we add additional 3, because I think the breakdown was 3 service persons and 2 for the digital experience. Is that correct?
Once it's up and running, yes. However, to do this, those 5 FTEs are going to be split with analysts to do the process improvements and the workflows to make sure that we got the correct connections and all the connectivity within the different departments to make sure that we're actually capturing that. And then once they're done their job, then we would flip it to the maintenance of that service experience office.
Understood. Thank you. That's it for me, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnard. Kathy, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. You did really make a passionate explanation there, and I think it's not something we don't want to do. I think you can hear council is saying we understand the frustration, want to fix it, but it looks like a big chunk, and that's part of the challenge. One question I had: this budget was prepared in November to start January 1. I know there's discounting that goes on. Is there any chance there's maybe $100,000 or $150,000 that might not be needed this year that we could put into next year? I'm looking for straws here. I'm looking for ways to grab on.
I'm going to answer with yes, if we have to. Yeah.
Could do
Yeah.
that. We could reduce it by about, I don't know, I did a quick math, about 171,000.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you for that.
That's actually a really good question, Kathy. I didn't thought of that. That's actually a good point, because we're already into the last part of March, and it's a very good
Yep.
observation. That's good, very helpful. Before I go to Councilman Cook, then I have a quick question myself, and I'll start round 2 with Councilman Newkirk. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a little bit of clarity. If this does not go forward, does it completely impact our website redesign? Can you just give a little bit of clarity surrounding the connection to the website redesign and the service enhancements?
I'm not recommending to do the website design. The website design is a technology and it's a 3rd phase. We have to do the work before we do that website. We're going to end up with the same situation that we have today if we don't do it properly.
So essentially it would halt it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a couple of quick questions myself, if you don't mind, while I think of it here. So you mentioned in one of the presentation slides, and again, the presentation was very good, very thorough. Compared to the budget document, it was much more informative and gave us more idea what this is all about. I have a better understanding of it now than I had previously, and I thank you for that. You mentioned in your presentation, we'll be able to do some KPIs, key performance and indicators. What kind of reports can we then, if the system were to go forward in its entirety, and it's all said and done, what kind of reporting can we get? What kind of information can we get for future councils to make good decisions on potential things that those KPIs will give us? Give us an idea what those things, we can't do now, obviously, but what can we get going forward to help future councils make good decisions?
What it'll do, it'll allow council to actually keep accountability to administration for delivering what the service level should be. And it will be transparent. So what it'll do is, for example, say we only hit 20% of our first response. So when a citizen would phone in, we're only good at 20% of the time that we actually can resolve a problem. We want to set a bar to say we want to increase that every 2% every year. It allows us to actually increase and be very, very cognizant of those types of reports, to say that we're going to work with all of the citizens to make sure we're increasing our service delivery. So what it allows us to do is actually know how we're performing.
Last thing again.
know how we're performing.
Okay.
So even understanding, and I know communications already does a lot of work with their digital as far as how much interaction. When we design it, we're designing it not just for the website content, we're also designing it for the systems that we're going to use. So when you design the system interaction in behind the scenes of the website, that's when we become very effective at our jobs. We can then say, how many times has this resident called about this particular issue? Why haven't we solved it? We can ask those good questions and have data to back that up.
And now we can't.
Not very well.
Effectively.
Correct.
Second question then is in terms of planning for the future as well. I mean, the presentation was nicely focused on the customer experience, which is an important part of it. Also, there's also the administration organizational component of the project as well. So you're seeing some. Can you explain some more efficiencies we may see in the future when this project, if it comes to fruition? What kind of efficiencies can we gain on? Will we have to hire less people in the future to do certain jobs that we're hiring for now? That kind of perspective, if you could.
If that's the intent, yes. What we're trying to do is the first phase of this. So say this is an operation for a year. We got to make sure we've maximized and figured out where our bulk of our issues are. So we would actually say, you know, after we go through the optimization, we might say we've saved on customer service. We were able to gain another 3 FTEs time somewhere in the organization. It may not affect this service office, but the other departments that were doing the customer service front face are gaining that so they can start delivering quality service on what they are supposed to be doing. It has a trickle effect. So that's what's very important here. It's not about just shifting FTEs. It's about what it impacts from an organizational standpoint. When we remove a function in a department and we pull it into a centralized office, that department now has good quality time that they can start delivering their services better. I know I may not be answering what you're asking for, but I want to make sure we're very aware that it's a process we're going to have to go through. So for me to answer to say we don't have to hire individuals, it's hard to do that in isolation of the entire organization. I can talk just about this office. This is what we're looking at. Our intent is to be very streamlined to make sure that our systems align with the individuals, as well as we have to get out into the frontline staff. They need to be taught the customer service culture as well. So that's going to take some teaching and training.
That does help me with the question. It was a difficult question to answer, but you did the best you could, and I do appreciate the answer. Having said that, I'm good right now. I may have a follow-up question in a moment or two. So Councilman Newkirk, we'll start round 2 with yourself. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to go back at your very succinct answer on the website. So the website project, you know, just to be very clear, so it'll get to a point where it doesn't make sense to do anything more with it if this wasn't funded. And then that project would pause until such time that the rest of our transformational world catches up with it. Is that
Correct?
That's the status it would be, that's where it would be at?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in that pause, is there any ability to bring any function to anything, or is the whole project paused and it just sits in one spot and its old website until there's an injection of transformation dollars? What does that look like?
The website itself is functionally not good. So to put resources in to try to fix it and to put some back-end programming is not worth it.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of what it looks like, I would say what we could do is even if portion of the dollars are provided to do some work, it would be to actually work through the processes and how we're going to integrate our flows before we actually go into the website design.
Yeah.
Doing an aesthetically pleasing website, we can do with what we have. It would not be money well spent because it lacks all the functionality we need to do our job better.
Yeah, no, and that's the answer I would expect, right? Is, you know, let's do it with the right way in the right direction. But as you said, there's some planning and process that you could do. Although Yeah, it's, or not although, but it is a very complicated task. We're fresh off a presentation where we had 500 some individual pages or something and dead links and all of it. So I get it. So just wanted to get ultimate clarity on that website piece. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll go back to a previous question if I could before I go to the next round. Okay, Kathy. Thank you. So a couple of councilors mentioned it's a substantial amount of money, and it is. 685,000 is not a small amount of money. And I think one of my fellow councilors mentioned from the previous council, it's probably the biggest ask we've ever had in the last 5 or 6 years for one project. So it's significant. I get that. Now, Kathy's question talked about, could you spend the entire 695,000 in this year? And being how it's already late March, odds are we can't. So from a fiscal perspective, in terms of, how much tax increase do we need for this project? It's approximately 3%. At face value at 685. You mentioned, without getting too detailed, but we do need to get an idea on how much do you think, have you had a chance to think about it, Mr. Blank or Mr. Dollar, could it be reduced by 150 or 175 for this year, knowing that we'll have automatically 175 for next year's budget ready to go because we have to fund the balance of the project. I get that, but it would maybe help a couple of councilors to know maybe a more firmer number that may bring this down for this discussion for this fiscal. This
185.
185 is the number. All right. 185. Now that sounds
185,
fine.
please.
That will probably help some council with the idea of how much it's going to cost and may influence our decision-making process. So that helps me a lot. Thank you very much. Councilor Barnhart, you had your hand up. So Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks for the clarification. The other question I had was, again, addressing the frustration that our citizens are expressing to all of us around can't get a hold of people when the citizens are available, residents are available. I think I heard you say that this would be a project that would make it available when the residents have a question. So it's either in person or online or chat, or I don't know how the different ways might be. Of course, that work's not completely done yet. Could you speak a little bit more about, like, would there be a time when nobody's available, or is this going to solve that problem? I mean, obviously 2 a.m, yes, we want the police and fire to be available, but we don't expect our staff to be available to answer questions about permits. But is there something here in it for the citizens in terms of, yes, you're going to be able to get a hold of somebody, and if you need to see them in person or hear them in person, you will, because that's one of the biggest frustrations that people have.
I think how we'd have to balance that is we would transition to online when it's after hours. So we would line up our facilities, like recreational facilities are usually opened up more or longer. So we'd be lining up a lot of that in person with those time frames. But we have to balance what we're going to be available for, because if we're available 24/7 in person, that's going to cost us a lot more money. So let's just balance it a bit. And as we go through the project, that's where the citizen engagement and the focus groups are going to come in. They're going to help us say, you know what, I like doing business online between 7 and 9 o'clock. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to sit down with my coffee and my computer and do my own thing. So we'll go through that during that process, but it is going to be a balancing. I don't think we would require interaction in the wee hours of the night unless we ran 24/7 programs.
Lunchtime, for example, is a good example. Or
Lunchtime,
4:30.
yeah.
People are home from work at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and they can't get a hold of anyone.
And-
Whereas that's the time that they need to get a hold of them. So is that possible at least?
And that's what the intent of the front desk, the multidisciplined or functional front desks we have. We know we have rec centers that are open. We can direct them there because they'll be able to help with some of those transactions, because we'll build in the knowledge they need to be able, say they want to pay their tax bill. It's the easiest one. They can go to the rec, we can direct you to the rec center at 7 o'clock at night and you can process your tax bill. You don't have to wait till the city hall's open. That's the intent. There will be still times when it's an inquiry. So they'll be defined on how detailed we can help. Paying transactions are easier during off hours, but if they have detailed questions about their tax bill, we'll have to actually wait till we have someone available to respond to that, right? So.
Well, and I think we're all experiencing when we call for help for any of the technology that we have or anything else that's detailed, some things you can't get the answer to, you have to talk to an agent or
Correct.
whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But I do think that we're at the point now where we have to do something because it's really getting to a critical stage where people are just they're not getting the answers they need. And instead they're getting angry and frustrated, and it's taken out on staff or counselors.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a question for clarification. You said, just mentioning there that you might direct them after hours to, for example, the rec center. So that wouldn't be including the 5, say, FTEs that's already, right? So then that just makes me think that's going to play into those employees, and they'll need extra training. And so I guess just maybe walk me through that. What
It's
is
changing the skill set of those employees. That's part of that, to
Okay.
identify that.
Okay. Because I'm only speaking that out loud because I know right now it's a little bit of a challenge. The front desk sometimes can be. I've personally experienced it myself, so I'm just, don't want to throw too much on those employees, but it sounds like you've already thought about that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. One more question before we go into sort of where we're feeling with things, and we'll explain that process in a moment. So is it reasonable to say that this project will replace, refine, update systems that may have not been paid attention to over the last 2, 4, 8, 10, 12 years? I'm not being critical of previous council. It's not my intention at all, or administration, but just given the perspective of it. I believe this project, what you've explained, will get rid of some old outdated systems and give us new systems. The service portal will be, I think, gone away with or enhanced, because the service portal right now, I think, is a pain point for a lot of people.
It's gone.
It would be gone, or it's gone now?
No, it'll be
It'd be
gone.
gone, yeah. I thought you meant then, not now.
No.
So it's fair to say that this will upgrade a lot of systems.
It'll upgrade a lot of systems and actually give us systems, because we don't have them. Some of them we don't even have.
Okay.
So when I talk manual, I'm talking manual. We are doing a lot of things with PDFs. We are doing a lot of things with pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets. That's a reality today.
That helps me a lot. So seeing no further questions, we're taking a little different approach this year. We're going to sort of now have some comments from council to kind of say how they're feeling about it. We do kind of a straw vote on this particular topic, and then move on to the balance of the rest of the budget and go through other initiatives as well too. So with that, I'll open up to council members to have comments on how they're feeling about this particular project from a straw vote perspective. Sam, you want to begin with that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll get a little philosophical here, but I'll keep it tight.
Okay.
So I think that the challenge with this, I think we're at the mercy of previous budgets. And I'll say previous council budgets, and I was there, so I'll take accountability for them. But we passed 2%, 1%, 0% every time. Poor Ms. Raymond kept asking for resources, and we kept saying no. And now we're here for an urgent situation from a planning perspective. And so, that's the challenge. That's the impact of these low percent budgets, that you have to catch up. And we're in a period where we have to catch up. For me, do I want this? Yes, absolutely. I personally, when I look at the balance of all this, there are some things on the unfunded budget that I think are more priority for direct impact for our citizens. So for me, I'm a no here today. My hope in this is, for something like a $685 or $1.1 million project, it would, we've told our residents, hey, we've got this innovation park coming, and we've got a significant influx of non-residential tax coming in. I can't say what that is yet. So in short, let's get an announcement and we'll bring it back in 6 months, right? The budget, 2024 budget, sorry to scare our finance folks, but that's not far away. And if we don't have that announced by then that's a whole other issue. So for me, it's a no today. Let's get the announcement, show the value, show the linkage of how we're, trying to improve this, plus balancing it out. So I'll leave it there. Pains me to say no to this. I really wish we could. But it'll be interested to see where others go and try to, drop it down a little bit. But either way, for me, whether it's 685, whether it's 500,000, it's a no for me until we have some better things. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor. Who would like to speak next on how they're feeling with this project? Councillor Barnard, followed by Councilman Newkirk. Kathy?
Thank you very much. I think I'll put the other side out there. I would vote yes for this today. And I didn't come in wanting to vote yes. I came in wanting to vote no. But you've explained it very well. I think, Sam, you actually, speaking, sorry, Councilor Monkoff-Swain gave the answer, I think, for me is that growth has happened and we are playing catch up. And this helps everyone. It helps all of our residents and it helps the administration. I just think it's a win-win for everyone. I wish it didn't cost that much, but wishing doesn't make it so. And I think it's down to 500K now, which is nice. That's a nice round number. But I just do think that it's been a long time coming. And I'm very frustrated by how much we thought we were fixing the system when we passed it every year with another fix to the website. So I guess we just learned as we went here. The administration has learned as well. So biting the bullet now, because otherwise it's going to cost us more. That's how I look at it. So I would be voting in favor.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councilman Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's looking at growth across the entire community and growth on internal systems, growth on the number of lots, growth on the number of houses, growth on the number of potholes, because that's coming soon too. Growth on the number of trees that need to be planted, growth on everything and every aspect of what we do. I've been bringing forward concerns with how we deal with residents' concerns, I think, since I got elected, and I probably won't stop doing that because I think collectively we've all wanted to get better and we continually have been getting better. The service portal was an improvement on, phone calls that went to emails and weren't returned and such. So although the service portal is full and cumbersome, that was an improvement that we made. And it may have outlived its life now, but it's what we have today. So the challenge for me is trying to decide the growth items that are presented in the funded column and the growth items that are presented in the unfunded column, and trying to weigh that alongside the concerns that residents bring to me, that residents bring to the chamber, and talk to us about, and the concerns that we hear about as we go about the community. And so many of those concerns go back to, the physical growth of what we're doing today. So what I'm weighing within my mind is trying to decide when is the right time to approve what's in front of us right now. Is it in this budget, or if not in this budget, it for certain needs to be done in the next budget. It was important for me to understand the connection between the financial system and the Service Transformation Initiative project, because they're both big asks. The financial system one, I think, is 620 plus a transfer of 500 some. So it's also a big ask in this budget, and it will be a big lift internally to do. So anyhow, I'll wind down by saying that I don't think 2023 is right for this one right now. I definitely will tip my hand on the financial system upgrade, because I think we would really be having trouble if we didn't do at least one of them in this term. So if the financial one can go, the website gets as far as it can feasibly, and this was paused this year. That's kind of where my head is at, Mayor, right now. Now, we are trying something a little bit different this year. As you had said, right? We're not doing a vote right now. I think you explained we're going to do kind of a vote at the end. So, we're going to go through a process here of listening to the other things that council members bring to the table, whether it's an unfunded item or a new fund item to consider, throughout this process. So, as administration keeps track of that, I reserve the right to change my mind. So there you go. But right now, we're starting right at the beginning, and that's where my head is that I'll be a no for right now on this one. And all things considered, a yes in 2024. That's kind of where my head's at. So just want everyone to know how important it is to be able to streamline some of the frustrations that do come into the chamber. And, you know, it weighs on me to have to make these choices, but that's what I'm trying to do. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Our job is balancing things of many different priorities. That's the best part of the job, the most difficult part of the job. So I appreciate your perspective. Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor Miller, followed by Councillor McCook. Renee?
Thanks, Mayor, and good conversation, great points on both sides. This is going to happen, this service transformation. It will happen. I know it's frustrating for the residents and yourselves that work for the city. We all been to the website where you click things and it goes to nowhere. So we know it has to get done. For me, there's just a few other things in the budget that I just think is more important than this at the moment. I'm very close to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's thought process, and I looked at 2024, and that might be the big ticket item that leads the charge. But there's just other ones in here that I see are in more dire need at the moment. So I'm a no for now, but I'm not a no forever. So great presentation, and that's where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Miller, followed by Councillor McCook. Ashley?
Thank you. I'll just keep it brief. This, you know, Councillor Monkoff-Swain said it just perfectly. This pains me. This is a wonderful opportunity to really improve that experience for our residents. And I would absolutely love to just check that box right now. Like how Steve put it, reserve the right to change my mind. But I mean, I am in favor of this, but I can't be at this time, I explained it when I initially spoke. So that is where I'm at. Yeah. And thank you so much for what you guys are doing and maintaining, the services levels that we have currently. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard it from each and every councillor that this is a difficult one. There's a lot to weigh. We have grown a lot in our community, and there's a lot of departments that need a lot of extra help due to our growth. And to Councillor Monkoff-Swain's point, to some, we haven't dealt with some of the growth. So this is a difficult one. However, I believe that we hear this time and time again from our residents. We can't get a hold of people. We can't get the answers we need. We can't do this. We can't do that. And with everything being so integrated, and I think that's just the world that we live in now, all these financial systems, apps, everything are so integrated. It's hard to do one without doing the other. I definitely understand that. I was a no coming in here today. I think I will tentatively be a yes. And to Councillor Monkoff-Swain's point, I reserve the right to change, because I do realize that there are other discussions that will be coming forward. However, I do also recognize that this is something that is very much needed. And I think if we halt the website redesign and we don't improve our service at all for our residents, that will definitely have an impact on their daily interactions with our cities. So that's kind of where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess that leaves me. It's me. I came in this idea 50-50 because I felt the budget package didn't have enough meat on the page, and you remedied that. Council, we had a conversation about this, and I thought it'd be best to have a presentation, and council thought it was a good idea, and you guys delivered on the presentation. And I believe, in my mind, I believe with Councilor Cook's comments a moment ago about the growth, how we're looking at things. I agree, past budgets have been on the aggressive side and slim side, and but these systems have been in place for many previous councils, and we need to get it into the 21st century, some of our systems. So I'm a yes at this point on this one. So right now we're sitting here. I won't go any further because in the interest of time this evening, it's just a straw vote right now. It's not a set vote, which we'll do later on in the budget process this evening and tomorrow. So we're sitting here at a 4-3 on the negative side, but as we all said, we can write to change our mind in the next hour or two, or by tomorrow, we'll see how that goes. But again, thanks for the presentation. You hit all the marks we asked you to in terms of information. It was very thorough. And a lot of work was in that. And I want to recognize that on behalf of council. A lot of work was put into that presentation, and it's much appreciated. So with that, we are going to conclude this part of our budget workshop this evening, which is the Service Transformation Initiative. We're sitting here at a straw vote, as I mentioned a moment ago. Next part of our process, we are taking a break at 7:30. So the next part of our budget process, we're opening up the budget to questions from council. Okay, on any part of the budget you want to ask questions on, now's the time to do that. You may recall submitting questions you had done back in November. You can revisit those questions now if you want to ask for clarification, and then we'll take a break at 7:30. And after the questions and answers are done, which may take as long as it takes, we'll then get into some motions from council on alternatives to the budget going forward. So with that, I see Councillor Tessier, you have your light on. So please, Renee, you have the floor.
I'll keep it short, Mayor, till we get to the actual subjects, but just a question on finances. So when we see transfers, like the new financial system, 620 grand, but transfers come in at 570, 517, 35. If nothing gets funded there, are those funds available to push somewhere else, and where are they actually coming from for those exact ones? I just need to completely understand that a little bit better is all.
Mr. DeBlanco?
Yes, thanks for the question, through the mayor to Councillor Tessier. So those transfers line item represent transfers from the city's reserves. So in most cases on these operating projects, they're coming from either the financial stabilization reserve or on specific planning projects, they could come from the planning reserve. So those funds would remain in the reserve to be available for, if in your words, if they were removed, are they available for another project? They'd be available for another one-time project. They wouldn't impact the tax levy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next councillor with questions? Yeah, any questions at all? Any part of the budget? Just more of sort of a general question answer period. Councillor Barnard, Kathy, you have the floor.
One question that I had, Mr. DeBlanco, did we know about the increase in the FCSS grant when we did this budget? And has that been taken into account?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, you're referring to the updated provincial
It's an
budget.
increase in the provincial budget.
I don't have the amount for that specifically. If Ms. Williston's in the room and she knows the amount,
Ms.
it wouldn't be
Williston?
reflected in the proposed budget as.
It was about $5 million across the province, and it has not been communicated down to the FCSS program level as to what the individual programs will get. So we don't have that information, but I'm sure you can appreciate it.
It's not a big number. So can you give it a guess? Is like 40,000 or something?
I would based on
It's per capita population.
and assuming evidence is,
2/3.
So
Okay, so it won't make any significant impact on your budget. You'll put it to good use, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
I'll, you said our timeline was to kind of till 7:30 and have a break.
Yeah, that's when supper's turning for
Yeah, no,
everybody.
I think
So
this will be good. I want to talk just about the community grants for the arts, that section of the budget here. We've already talked about and heard about the catch up we're playing, and this is another place where we're playing catch up, and the one pager we have here definitely speaks to that catch up. Just hoping to get a refresher on the 2023, 24, 25, 26, 27. At what year in there do we catch up to the 3-to-1 funding as per council policy C38? Is it right to the end of 2027 or is it before that? I'm just wondering when do we catch up on that,
Mr. DeBlanco?
Or do we? Thanks for the question. We don't have that particular piece of information available right now. It would be dependent on, as it is a ratio, would be dependent on the amount of funding that goes to recreation in any given year. This is the strategy to get us closer to that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I won't ask you for any more numbers then. I'll stop there. I was gonna say how much right now, but you know, that's the same question, just with a different time frame. So I'll leave it at that, Mayor, for now.
Thank you, Counselor. I had a question. I still lost my paperwork here. Give me 1 second. Anybody else have got questions at this point? Seeing no questions. Okay, let me try and find mine. Hang on a second. Oh, go right ahead, Ashley. That helps me. Council Miller, you have the floor.
I was, deciding if I should ask this. So sorry, back to the service transformation initiatives. If it was dropped to 500,000 for this year, what percentage is that? Because we initially said it's roughly 3. So does it drop? And then what does it look like after that, year after that?
Mr. Blanco?
So a reduction of 185,000, as Ms. Bodo Hudak indicated, represents approximately 0.8 of a tax increase. So that 0.8 would then show up in 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, you're good, Ashley? Okay, thank you. Councilor Tessier, Renee?
Just a process question on how it's being tracked and where we can see it throughout budget. I know we talked about a shared document so we can follow the votes and the percentage while it's being tallied, just understanding what's happening for that tonight.
Mr. Blanco?
Thanks for the question. We have a live tracking document that if Ms. Mead can pull it up, will show where we're at with the proposed, and any approved motions are tracked in there.
Great, thank you.
We have a quick look at it while it's on the screen there, so. Okay, so we're at 5.1 now, so anything we add or change will be reflected as we go through it.
Okay, sounds good. So the copy. Because
Well, council wanted to do a bunch of straw votes first, right? So we'll kind of use that as a methodology. We probably could, yeah. Yeah, so Mr. DeBlanco, could you indulge us and take off the 685 for the service transformation initiative? And see how that 5.1 or 5.18 would be affected by that? Down to 2.2?
Zoom in. There should
That's
be
really small.
a zoom on the bottom right-hand side.
Thank you. Okay, that puts it at roughly 2.2. That's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, supper's here in 5 minutes, so I'll just call a break right now and we'll have an extra 5 minutes instead of 15. We'll have 20 minutes for a break, and then we'll get into start doing motions, and if any further questions, then we'll start going into some motions and